Welcome back. I'm Jen Potter, host of Networking Now. I'm joined by Jennifer Hopson, and throughout the segments, we have been talking about the importance of health and wellness, how it affects our body, also the struggles that we have in business, and how they're all kind of combined, and all the things in between. And so, welcome back, Jen. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank
Befo-
you.
Yes, absolutely. And so before the break, we were talking about the importance of, a healthy lifestyle and why it's so important to us business owners. And, the more that we do, the more things that we have on our plates, literally, not just our food, but the more things that we have on our plates, we tend to, sometimes be overworked and we can get run down. And if we're not taking care of ourselves, things are going to hit the fan, right? And it's not going to be pretty. But if we do take care of ourselves, even in the instance of us, having to stop and do things that, having to stop in business or not being able to do the things that we want to do, we recover a little bit quicker and we're able to kind of bounce back. But one of the things that we talked about in between on the break was both me and Jen do have something chronic. And myself is a heart condition. And I've had a heart condition for about 15 years now. And the longer that I've had it, the more that I've kind of learned about it and it's evolved over time. But one minute I'm perfectly fine. And the next minute I'm in the ICU. And it's a really amazing and scary thing to be super, super healthy. Like I ran the Boston Marathon last year, and then all of a sudden to be like, I'm in the hospital like 3 weeks later. Actually, 3 days later after the Boston Marathon, I was in the hospital because they thought I was having a heart attack. And so it's crazy because I do take care of myself, but there are times that I'm not able to do those things. And it's really, really scary. But what if I didn't take care of myself every day? I probably wouldn't be able to do half the things that I do. And a lot of people always say to me, Jen, one minute you're fine and the next minute you're not. And when you go back to work, how do you not let any of that affect you? And for me personally, if it's not in front of me and it's not bothering me, it doesn't exist. Because if I feed that energy into what I have going on, I wouldn't be able to do the things that I'm doing. So I'm able to kind of compartmentalize and not really think about it as much. And I know, I'll let you talk a little bit, Jen, about, the things that you kind of have going on, but how do you handle that when it comes to your health and your wellness? And I know you have little babies as well. So what is that like with you in business?
Well, I think for a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, people that are relatively successful, typically are high functioning, right? We like to function at the highest level and we typically like control. We like to be in control of things. And when it's not going the way that we planned, that can really throw us off course. And children, they don't go as planned. Having them,
That's so true.
raising them, right? So there's that part of it, and then being a person that does suffer from being sick, it is one of those things where you're going it's either you're going 0 to 60 or you're going 0, and it's hard to figure that out, and one of the things that I've had to do because it can also mess with your mindset, and I've had this a lot, and this is one of the stories that I work with over and over again, is when you are taking rest, if you're a high functioning person, you start to think, "Oh, I'm just being lazy. Oh, I could be doing this, I could be doing that, I should be doing," we're shoulding all over ourselves. And that's hard
Hmm.
because then what happens is the time that you are taking to rest isn't actually restful because you're just stressed to the max thinking about all this stuff that I could have started dinner 30 minutes ago, but I didn't. I could have called this one person, but I didn't. Or I could. It goes on and on and
Hmm.
on. So it's really, there's no perfect formula, but the formula I typically work with is rest when you need it, let go of what you can't control, and ask for help. I think that's a really big thing, and I was actually out to dinner with my friend the other day, and it's one of those things where you're like, "Yeah, I've nailed it," because she goes, "You're so good at asking for what you need." That didn't come naturally. Like, that wasn't
That's that's
something.
that's a hard thing to do. And
It
that's
is.
impressive, right?
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, good job, Jen, good job asking for," and that sometimes even from physical touch to, communication, it's all these different things, and being able to be confident enough to go, because sometimes you don't see it coming. So you need to rest regardless, and that's really hard for a high functioning person, but being able to go, "You know what? I'm planning rest into the equation so that I can prepare for those other things. And you have to let go of that guilt and also building a team that you trust. You have to trust, and that gives them opportunity to shine. And you can say, you know what, I need to take a step back. I'm trusting you to do this. And that's, the more stressed we are, whether or not you have a medical condition, the more stressed we are, the more likely we are to fail.
Mhm.
So we need
That's
to make
absolutely true.
sure, yeah, we need to make sure we're supporting ourselves. And sometimes it's asking for help when we need it. That's guilt-free, relaxing. It's building a team that we trust and giving them opportunity to shine. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. What happens with some people is they don't do any of them. And then what happens is something happens with their health or they completely shut down, and now everything they've been working for falls apart, and they blame it on taking a rest when really it was like, no, your body just needed to recover. So it's just, you have to take a step back, take inventory, and this is for the average person that doesn't struggle with the extras, and go, where is my planned guilt-free rest time? Who am I setting up to take over if I need that person? I need to tap them in. And, what do I need to ask help for? And how am I okay with it? You have to be okay with it.
I agree with all of that, and that's so important. And, that's it's funny because I didn't really think about this when we first started talking about things that we could have done differently in business. And when you just started talking just now, it was like this light bulb went off in my head. And if I could rewind what I said at the beginning of the episode and say the thing that I probably would have done different, I would say this now because I do say this now, is I would have set better boundaries at the beginning of my business journey. And, you really hit the nail on the head when you said it is, guilt-free rest time, finding someone that you can trust, making sure that, that we're taking care of ourselves. And the thing is that for me, and I do this now, I actually teach workshops on this all over the place, and it's about boundaries and time management. And I had to learn, I had to become an expert in scheduling and time management and boundaries in order to be successful in business. That is something that I had to be very proficient in because I own several businesses and I have a lot of employees. And so, in order for me to be successful and trust other people, I had to get my stuff together, right? And at the beginning of my business journey, I was the yes person. I said yes at all times of day. My phone would ring no matter what time it is, and I would answer my phone. I would respond to my emails at all times of the day, whether morning, noon, and night. Well, if I don't respond, I'm not going to get a client. I would make myself accessible even when I wasn't accessible. I would make myself accessible on the weekends. I'd make myself accessible while I was at my kids', soccer games or lacrosse games or what
Everywhere.
everywhere. No matter where I was, I'm like, I had like my AirPod in. And I mean, I still do have my AirPod in sometimes, but I'm no longer giving access to people, giving access to them to my time
Yeah.
when I need to be present for my children because it ruins relationships
Oh, for
and it
sure.
could ruin, family relationships, personal relationships, relationships with your kids, relationships with your friends, whatever relationships just in general. And what I had to learn was setting boundaries on my footer in my email.
I
And
remember it.
it will say it says it at the bottom of all my emails. This is the time I'm available. And the other time is spent for my family because family time can never be, it's never going to be here again. My kids are going to be one day older tomorrow. And what happened today can never be repeated. But work will always be there. Clients will always be there. We have to realize what is important to us. And my children are the most important things to me. And it is so important to set those boundaries for ourselves. And I'm actually teaching somebody else this right now. So a good friend of mine has a really hard time with setting boundaries. And they'll be in the middle of something and their phone will ring and they'll answer their phone while they're in the middle of doing something else. And I'm
Mhm.
like, wow,
Whoa.
time out. This doesn't work. Like, you can't keep making yourself so accessible. And they're like, well, I have to because X, Y, and Z. I'm like, no, you're making up an excuse as to why. If they know that you have boundaries, they will respect you that
Mhm.
much more. And if they don't, that's a them problem, not a you problem.
Yeah.
Because if somebody goes back and complains, like, oh my goodness, Jen didn't respond back to me because she set boundaries, do you think they're going to look like an idiot or you're going to look like an idiot? And depending on who they're talking to, I mean, it
I
could be one or
mean,
the other, right? But at the same time, you're not allowing them into your time
yeah.
and taking days off, right? Like as a business owner, the first 2 years that I was in business, I don't remember actually ever
No
taking a
days
day off.
off.
Like
Well, one of the
it's
things
hard.
I actually work with empowerment coaching is this fun activity of become an expert at saying no.
Hmm.
And it has nothing to do with, well, if I say no, I'm not saying yes to this. And we start with what are and it's an exercise that we go through, and we end up identifying their three top focuses. So the things that they are their main priorities. If saying yes to something is not in alignment with one of those three things, then why are we saying yes to it? And so it goes into those boundaries. And what's so funny is when I first saw your email header, I was like, that is so good. Where some people might not want to go as far as do that because they start thinking like, well, someone doesn't want, what if they don't like that or they don't want to work with me? Well, you know what? They're not your people.
Oh,
They are not
that's
your
my motto. They are not my client because if my client does not respect me from the gate, it is what it is. And with all the different organizations that I work for, it like I do work 7 days a week all summer because I
Mhm.
have to. I work, I'm a surf instructor and I work on the weekends. So I work every day of the week. If I don't give myself personal time, so during the week, I'll make sure that I set time aside for myself to give myself a break. And we don't do that as business owners. We're like, if we don't keep going, we're not going to succeed. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you're going to have work every day, all day, no matter what in business. My cell phone, I tell people this all the time. I probably have 75 text messages that aren't responded to yet. And it's not because I am ignoring them. It's because I have to be more intentional when I respond back to them. Because when I respond to 75 text messages, you know what happens next, right? You get 75 more. They
75
never go
responses.
away. Yeah, they never go away because people are like, oh my God, but you still have all those text messages. I'm like, because the second I respond, they're just going to respond back. And
Mhm.
I'm intentional. I don't believe in instant gratification. If we teach our clients and our friends that we don't believe in instant gratification, they're going to respect us that much more. Oh, if you need to get a hold of me, call me. I'll become accessible if you really need me. If it's an emergency, I will make myself accessible. We talked about this before. We make time for the things that we want to do. But if we're trying to be intentional, I'm not going to answer the phone like while we're on this call, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I need to be here and be present, and that's so important. And it all just ties right in. But believe it or not, we're already at the end of this segment. So when we come back, we're going to wrap it up, talk about all of the things we didn't get a chance to talk about, and stay tuned. We'll be back.